Welcome to We're Gonna Run It with Joe Lisi and Terry Bowden.
You're listening to We're Gonna Run It.
What's your game plan?
Can they run, but will they run? If you want to run the ball, you got to give it to a guy that's a running back.
Gutless. We're gonna run it.
We're gonna play blue collar. Enjoy it. I said it. Have a little heart and have some stones.
We're gonna run it.
If you want to throw an RPO, you got to run first, pass second. That's why it's not called a PRO. It's an RPO. You got to start with a running game that puts people on their heel.
Take a look at my algo. His algo is used with all data from last year. You're so smart, you're stupid.
We're gonna run it.
And the people that believe that talking head are even stupider than what I thought. I said it.
If you want to run the ball, you got to give it to a guy that's a running back.
You got no shot to get back into the series. No shot. I said it. What's your game plan?
We're gonna run it.
Oh, baby, another week number 12 as we inch closer to the college football playoff. Joe Lisi and Terry Bowden talking all things college football. Coach, great action last week in week number 11. We'll get some breakdowns about that. We have, I would say, an under-the-radar week in week number 12. It's still important. SEC will take front and center stage with two marquee battles. We have Georgia and Texas, Oklahoma and Alabama, potentially two college football playoff elimination games. Some news and notes, though, surrounding the coaching carousel. Jeff Brom and Louisville potentially working on an extension. On3 just reported that about a couple hours ago, that Louisville wants to keep their former quarterback, Jeff Brom, in Louisville to potentially win an ACC championship. He's done a great job. I think it's the right move for the school. We talked about him maybe being a dark horse, but for the Cardinals, that's a solid move moving forward for the next 3 seasons.
He played there. They love him there. They've lost 2 games this year, both in overtime, and they have played for the ACC championship during his time. And so, no, that's a good fit. It's his play. That's where he comes from. And really, he does give them the best chance if they can keep him. Gives them the best chance year in and year out to contend for the ACC championship. A little bit further out right now, but everybody's still kind of live in the ACC because nobody wants to take control.
It really is true. And, you know, with the college football playoff odds, Coach, shocked to see Miami as number 11, that they're going to sneak in over the likes of even Louisville that beat them as a 14-point dog. Thoughts about Miami? And I understand it's not a finished product, but You still have Virginia, you still have Georgia Tech, you still have Duke that are going to battle it out over the next couple of weeks. I understand that Miami has the pedigree and the brand recognition, but how could you put Miami ahead of all of those teams in the college football playoff odds?
You know, I mean, I'm just so disappointed in Miami because I think they do. I think when you look at the team and where they should be and the talent that they have, and how strong they are when they're playing good football, they're probably as good, if not better than everybody in the conference, or at least as good, but they haven't done that. They haven't played like that. And it's just that when you look at their schedule, their team and what they're capable of, and they've knocked off a very good USF team, a ranked team. They knocked off Notre Dame, which is getting better and better. Looks like to be a playoff team. It's a bigger statement on how average right now the ACC is, not how good Miami is.
And we'll see if the Hurricanes can knock down that door. Not an easy matchup this weekend. They're 14.5-point home favorites over NC State. We saw NC State knock off Virginia earlier in the year. That was a Virginia loss that didn't count towards the conference. So this is the bigger game for Virginia this weekend against Duke. They'll battle it out. Whichever team wins will have the inside track. Duke right now, basically a 5.5-point home favorite over Virginia. Thoughts about Virginia's performance, Coach, last week against Wake Forest? I understand Chandler Morris went down, but you have to somehow, some way, find a way to gut that game out. They lose it 16-9. Thoughts about this team moving forward over the next 3 weeks?
Well, I mean, I'll say this: you can't find a way. Some people don't have a second quarterback. The drop-off is so big when you lose a quarterback. It's like no other position on the field when you're playing a good team or you don't have a good backup. And I think in this day and age where it's hard to put your NIL money into a starter at a place like Virginia and get a Chandler Morris. And then he goes out in the second quarter, and the backup really couldn't do a thing. They kicked 3 field goals. They couldn't score a point. He's not the answer. And earlier in the week, I was saying, I don't think I could pick Virginia with a different quarterback, but they say he's ready. He practiced this week, and so he could be back. But again, they have won all year, winning close ball game. I think they've had 3 overtime victories. It's been that kind of year for them. And the coach says they've got the right mindset. But when they lost their quarterback, they don't have a good enough team. They had no answers. We've seen that with quarterback losses at Missouri. We saw it at Syracuse. It's not easy for teams in this day and age when you can't stockpile players to have good backups in every place. And, boy, you can see when a backup is in and the starter's out because quite often they can't compete like they used to.
No, and sort of the playbook is a little bit limited. You look at the Missouri game. Zollers never threatened Texas A&M in any capacity. They get the touchdown in the third quarter, but by that time they were dead and buried, already trailing that matchup. I do believe Texas A&M is deserving at least to be ahead of Indiana. I understand, that performance in Penn State, a lot more difficult than I think people thought. They had never won in Happy Valley. Unbelievable catch, unbelievable fourth quarter performance out of Mendoza. He has now had, and they showed it, 3 games, the 3 biggest games of the year, Coach, Iowa, Oregon, and Penn State, where they didn't play the closest games, right? And the biggest games, he's thrown an interception, and as soon as he throws the interception, he rebounds with a touchdown drive immediately after that. That's what you want to see out of your quarterback, number one. Based off the performance last week, still buying, selling Indiana. What did you think of that performance in Happy Valley Saturday afternoon?
Well, they won a game where they didn't play that good, and they were looking to get beat toward the end, and so you really wondered how they would respond after Penn State went down and scored and went ahead with just a minute and a half left in the ball game. But the quarterback showed why he is the number 1 candidate for the Heisman. India showed why they're just not a team that just wins big or lays it on people than they're better than. They go out there and find a way to win a critical game. And Penn State at Mount Nittany at Penn State Stadium, that's a tough place when you play them at home. I know they're having a bad year, but that place can be pretty good when the fans get rocking, and they were in that game. That's a pretty tough environment. So again, he's there's a reason he's number 1 in the Heisman. He went back and showed that kind of performance. But again, Iowa's coming back in Wisconsin. I'm sorry, in that game this week, and they've got go back to the quarterback situation. They don't have a quarterback until they're not sure they've got anybody. And it was horrible last week as they couldn't score because they couldn't find a quarterback that could complete a pass, and they're not sure what they're going to do this week. But anyway, Indiana really has proven they want to be there, but they still haven't proven to me that they're as good as Ohio State.
Right, and I think that's the biggest thing. Maybe it's a little bit closer. Maybe it's a little bit more competitive. But you still saw weaknesses of Indiana. And again, especially in run support, because they were so dominant against some other teams. And when you just see a Singleton and you see the offensive line, they got the running backs out in space in the screen game. That was important for Penn State to move the football. And Penn State's defense, I didn't think played all that bad. I think the biggest takeaway for me is because people thought Penn State would just lay up because they had Ohio State. It's a lot harder to get up. You lose to the number 1 team in the country, and then all of a sudden you have a 12 o'clock kick in your building with, oh, by the way, the number 2 team in the country.
Right.
So you could forget about that performance. Tell me if I'm wrong. Last Saturday against Ohio State, because you can erase it. Everybody will forget about Ohio State if you play well against Indiana and potentially strike the upset. And that's what I was looking at with the 14.5 points. But now I think big picture for Penn State, they're very difficult to bet on the rest of the year. The 2 emotional losses, and now what do you get in the second half of the season?
Well, Penn State, I think you're right. I think as we've seen with other teams, the further you get removed from the coaching change, where people rally together, they circle the wagons, the kids get emotional, the assistant coaches get emotional, and they play well. That runs dry after a couple of weeks. It has done that in a lot of other places. Whether that happens at Penn State, probably more likely than not, because you got to remember we talked about this last week.
Right.
The kids started getting NIL contacts from other people. This guy talked to that guy. They're in the locker room. You get a lot more locker room conversations that's not about the team that you're playing that week. It's about what are we going to do? Where are we going to go?
Right.
Is a new guy going to want us there? And so all that is a distraction. But a lot to be said again in all of that they played so well against Indiana. And almost got the victory there.
Right, and you saw it with Florida. I mean, late at
Yes.
Jag against Kentucky. They go out there 3.5-point favorites and they get boat raced 38-3. I mean, crazy. So that's a great point. I think, the further you get removed, there's always the potential of these kids checking out. Now, I will say the LSU situation, I didn't like LSU in the game.
Right.
They played competitive. They lose it. It was close. It was right up basically on the number. Bama gets the win and covers. The talk about Nick Saban, and you and I have dived into this.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't respect Nick Saban. He's the best. You can make the argument if you're a history buff, you want to go with Bear Bryant. I get it. Saban's best modern day, maybe. But now you're getting Saban, and it's not enough, but you call it what it is. He's on the back nine, right? He's removed from college football 2 years already. And the reason why he left Alabama was because he didn't like the landscape of NIL. He didn't like the direction of where it was going. And now I understand the LSU are trying to catch lightning in the bottle, the fan base. But if you're serious about getting this team back on track, you go with a younger head coach. Unless you tell me Nick Saban's going to be there for a year and he's going to hire Lane Kiffin or a young Lane Kiffin and all the coordinators to take over. How do you get Nick Saban now in Baton Rouge?
I don't think you do. I mean, first of all, I think this is just rumor and internet gossip. I don't see Nick having any desire at all to get back in the game. But we had a couple of the announcers there with him on game day say that we think that might happen. Shaq made a comment because Shaq is an old LSU guy. Everybody loves to it's like reruns. Everybody loves the rerun. They hope they can make a little more money on a rerun. It just doesn't happen that well. You got to remember, North Carolina, Matt Pratt was a rerun,
right?
Because they wanted him to do what he did years before,
right?
And then they go out there and do the same thing. And with Belichick, they want to rerun his career there. And now I think he's just hoping to have a good finish there. So, but I now say this: Nick is in a whole different level as far as the success that he's had, and I don't know. He looks young and he acts like he still got an injury, but I agree with you. He left the league at the time that he felt like NIL's coming on, portal transfers, all the things that he believes in, development, process, kids buying in, all those things are not what gets a kid to your school anymore.
Right.
Money first.
Right.
Gets them to your school. I don't think he has any desire to jump into that and the uncertainty of it all. But I do. Like I said, I live in Louisiana. Everybody around here is an LSU fan. They think it's the greatest place in the world. And anybody would want to coach at LSU, get out of the retirement, get out of the NFL. Everybody wants to coach there. It's a great place to coach.
It is.
But it's still, it's you can't, they imagine a little too much. Nick Saban, right. I don't think will come out of retirement. It's a nice, interesting thing.
Right.
And but they're more realistically looking at is it Brady, the quarterback coach, if they could get him out of the NFL, which I don't know if they can. John Sumlin is not a big a name, but I know him. He's a heck of a coach. He might be the next young great one coming along in the SEC. Or Drinkwitz or some of these people that I think we know are good coaches.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think if they hire Saban, I'm just going to say this.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work out, you have the ability to set this program back 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
Because then Ole Miss, if they keep Kiffin, or Kiffin goes to Florida, Kirby's got that train rolling. Alabama now. LSU is known to compete for national championships. If they don't get it right with Saban, and let's just say he is at the end of his rope, it's going to take 5 years to get this program back.
Yeah.
You lose the luster. I don't know if Drinkwitz is the answer, especially seeing how they performed. And I thought he was. I think he's a better fit for Auburn. I think he's a better fit for potentially other jobs. Even you want to make the argument Arkansas, that's fine. But I don't think LSU would. I don't think Drinkwitz is a great fit for that. Summerall, yeah, great fit in the sense of recruiting. He understands the landscape, blue collar. I do worry about the quarterback. He has Retzloff there. They stepped up, the other day against Memphis. It's interesting. I'm torn. If it's not Kiffin, I'll just say this. Brady is good. I don't know, Coach. He's in the NFL a long time. 2019 is 6 years ago. These coaches that go to the NFL, they don't know the NIL. The NIL is the Wild West. If you don't embrace it like Lanning and Kiffin and Signetti and some of these other guys that get it, you're gonna get beaten down by these other teams that have better players and have better scouting for the transfer portal.
Well, you know what? It comes down to having whoever makes decision that they understand what they're doing and they do their homework and they look at the body of work. I mean, would anybody have picked Kurt Signetti to have done what he did at Indiana?
No,
because he was at James Madison.
Right.
I would have said that. I've watched him. I've known him. That's just like John Summerall. I'm not throwing his name out there because he's right down the street. I've coached against him. I've been on the sideline looking across. I've watched him take a team and transform it. I've watched him take another team and get right to the top. I know what they look like. He may not be the first guy there, but he'll win. Wherever he goes, he's going to win. He's going to win wherever he goes. And I'm a little stronger on Drinkwitz. I don't think whether he gets the job or not. I just watch what he does at Missouri. Now, last week was an outlier. It was a no quarterback situation. They had no answer with it. I mean, that guy couldn't hit the side of a barn. He couldn't play dead in the cowboy movie.
It was terrible, Coach.
It was
Third
bad.
Down.
But that was the quarter. It all went around the quarterback. And, they kind of hung close to halftime, but that was about it because they weren't going to score any points. And that's kind of what happened to Virginia when they lost Chandler Morris. And so, again, it'll be interesting. I think the thing that I know, because, again, I've been a head coach in a lot of places. I've been hired into the SEC from a 1AA program, Samford. I doubt many people thought I would be able to be successful going into the SEC, and I have seen others do it. Who gets that young coordinator? Who gets the coordinator? Bob Stoops leaving Florida as a coordinator, going to Oklahoma, winning a championship. The guy that makes the decision, if he knows what he's doing and researches it and understands what it takes to be a head coach, a coordinator who can bring in other staff members, who's got the overall package. You had to know those guys are like that. Guys like as Urban Meyer came up, you knew he was going to be a good coach. You didn't know what kind of coach he was going to be at the end. Even Nick Saban, when he got to LSU, he wasn't having great success at Michigan State, but the word was already out on him. The word was out on his work habit, his background, all those things. So,
and at Michigan State, he had Plaxico Burress, he had Cedric Irvin, he had Gus Ornstein, and Bill Burke. He had a pretty good class.
Yes,
for what he had in East Lansing, he was a good recruiter, and I think that's what carried through until 03, right?
Right. Well, exactly. He's a great. He understands. He very much was one of the first ones to take a real NFL approach to recruiting, analytically looking at these kids and evaluating them from an NFL standpoint. Knowing how to develop certain kids, what not to go after and what to go after. And he's that's why he would probably still do a really good job. But like I say, my biggest thing is not that he's too old. It's mine is that it ain't there no more. He ain't going to make that move.
No, I don't think so either. I would bet against that. But again, we'll see exactly what transpires over the next couple of weeks. I did say it was 2 separation games and elimination games in the SEC. So let's just preview the conference because I think there's some really intriguing games. We'll start with the the 12:45 kick because we just talked about LSU and Nick Saban. LSU 5.5-point home favorites over Arkansas. Arkansas hasn't won an SEC game, 0-5. They're coming out of a bye. This LSU team is potentially going to start Michael Van Buren. He's the transfer from Miss State. He's going to burn his red shirt, coach.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that. He's mobile. He gives a little more athleticism.
Right.
That's fine. The problem, which, as we know, when we cover this Arkansas team, I love them, by the way, meaning just how they play. I don't know what they're going to do coming out of the bye week, but I do believe in Mike Washington. And we know that Taylon Green, when he's on, is as lethal as anybody. The problem with LSU is they can't stop mobile quarterbacks.
No.
My heart says LSU, but I don't know if you're going to – it's a 12:45 kick in Baton Rouge. It's not even under the lights. What are we going to get out of this team coming out against Arkansas?
Well, I think the biggest concern of mine is even after they've changed coaches, they've made no difference in their offense. They've done nothing to look different, play different, improve the running attack, be more of a better style of play calling. You look at what Auburn did in their loss to Vanderbilt. They found an offense that did not exist for the entire year in every phase, running, passing, total offense, turn every phase of it. It was a completely different football team because somebody was calling the plays that wasn't calling it before. I don't think LSU has that there. They may play with the quarterback and change it around. Right. I mean, even Nussmeier was 18 of 21. It wasn't like he threw downfield a lot, but he didn't throw any interceptions. He didn't mess up.
Right.
They just don't play very well. And I don't see them playing. I don't have a good feel for either of those teams really having a lot of heart. I got a call from a coach on Arkansas staff to see if I could recommend him for a job where I know the AD.
Right.
So you know what that's because they're trying to find jobs.
Right.
And that's what happens. The further you get removed, the closer to the end of the season, the more those assistant coaches start closing their door and making phone calls because they've got to do it. So again, LSU, same thing going there in Arkansas. That's one of those that and then I'd probably take Arkansas, to be honest with you, because I don't see LSU having any offensive answers.
Yeah, the concern, and I'm not betting this game.
No.
I'm going to watch it. I think it'll be very entertaining on the Arkansas side because Mike Washington, if you haven't seen him, the transfer out of New Mexico State, the kid is electric. He's a game changer. Taylon Green, this offense is still averaging well over basically 450 total yards per game. So they bring their lunch pail. They're going to, nobody wants to go winless in the conference, right? They're 2-7. And when you look at the body of work for Arkansas, it's not like they've been blown out, Coach. They went toe-to-toe with Ole Miss, lost by 6. Toe-to-toe with Tennessee, lost by 3. Toe-to-toe with Texas A&M, lost by 3. Lost by basically 4 to Miss State. There's 4 games right there by 7 or less. I think you're right that maybe the Arkansas, personnel is checked out, but I still think the kids will be somewhat bought in. I like the over in the game. We'll see what transpires. I do want to just ask before we turn it over, if you're whoever the new head coach is, right, is there a 50-50 shot Petrino stays as the OC? Because the problem is not the offense. I mean, I'm just asking. Like,
I would.
You wouldn't do it?
If I'm the head coach, I'm going in there, and with his background, he's kind of a head coach personality. I mean, he's kind of a guy that is in charge. I don't know that you would ever totally have control. Would you be willing to go in there and say, hey, Petrino, hey, listen, I want you to run this. I don't want you to run that. This is what I believe. It wouldn't happen. I just don't think a new head coach would go in there knowing what a strong personality he has. I don't think you can ask for those two things. That's in my mind. Now, you hire a defensive coach to take over, he might deal with it, but I'm just saying is even that, he's got a Petrino who's going to have a strong opinion about what he wants to do, and he gets to the point where, hey, we're going to do what I want to do. If you want to hire me, we're going to do what I want to do. Right. And I've got a feeling he would say that. I just wouldn't want to start that way. I'd want to go in there, get my own people, believe in what I want to do, and go from there.
We'll see exactly what transpires. Again, you have playmakers on the offensive side for Arkansas. The big 3, Taylon Green, Mike Washington, Omega Blake. I call him the Omega Blake from Charlotte. Kid's electric, Coach. I'm telling you, he's going to be a playmaker on the next level. Yeah.
I mean, I'm taking Arkansas in the game. When I talked about that coach, look, that's a general statement about all staffs with the head coach gets gone.
You have to entertain
I think Arkansas will have too much offensively. I don't see LSU having any answers offensively in what they're doing.
Not sure they're going to come out with any spark after losing to Alabama. How about this game, South Carolina and A&M? Interesting because A&M is on a heater. We know this. They do have the Gamecocks and then out of conference, and then they have the big game after Thanksgiving with Texas. That could be an elimination game for the Longhorns to potentially not make the college football playoff. This game last year, South Carolina blew them out, 44-20. That was where A&M was laying 2.5 on the road in Williams-Brice. It was a dynamic performance by the Gamecocks. Coach, I don't know if they win this game, but I'm going to take the 18.5. I just think it's way too many points. I understand how dominant A&M has been, but sometimes you have to stop the bleeding. You talk about the Gamecocks. They have lost 4 straight games right now. They lost 20-10 to LSU, 26-7 to OU, Oklahoma, 29-22 to Bama. That was the game they had them dead to rights, and they covered as a 12.5-point dog. And then obviously last week, people backed them against Ole Miss, completely outclassed, and they lost it 30-14 no bye week, excuse me. But I still believe in South Carolina in this spot. Just again, they're playing a little bit with house money, and maybe A&M dominates, but you still have to win by 3 touchdowns. I'll take a shot with Sellers and the Gamecocks to keep it close.
Yeah, I do too. I like the numbers that high. I don't think South Carolina, they haven't lost their head coach. He's still got control of the practice field. He's got control of the locker room. And I think he's not going to lose his team like some of these programs where they've lost their staff or their head coach and everybody's kind of guessing where they're going to be. I think South Carolina is much too talented. And I want to say this, to Texas A&M, they're going to find a way to win, but they're due for a little bit of a flat game. They're due for one of those where they just find a way to win. And South Carolina is a perfect team to take it down to the wire. They have taken other people to the wire, and it would not shock me. In fact, I believe that's what they'll do. And I'm taking South Carolina and the points. I just feel like it's a game where that's just too much to overcome point-wise for a team as talented as South Carolina.
And I was right. It was a bye week. They did play Ole Miss a couple weeks ago. So an extra week of preparation. You stop the bleeding. Maybe have a different game plan coming out. They could still potentially be bowl eligible. I know it doesn't look that great for Beamer and the Gamecocks. This was looked at as a potential dark horse for the college football playoff, an outside dark horse for an SEC championship. They had an 8.5 win total at the start of the year. If somehow, some way you can knock off A&M, you then have Coastal Carolina and then a rivalry game at home with Clemson. You run the gamut. You're bowl eligible, and at least you save the season if you're Shane Beamer. So we'll see exactly how that plays out. The big one, Alabama and Oklahoma. Coach, I still believe in this Oklahoma team. I believe in the tier. I know Bama is the more complete team. I know their quarterback is better in Ty Simpson. The defense was opportunistic against LSU. But I still believe that Oklahoma can pose a problem defensively for the Alabama offense. And as long as they're clean with the football, I think they're going to be in this game. I like them plus the 6.5.
Yeah, I'm not going to give it to them per se. I think Alabama can win by a touchdown, but I think it will be a close one that Alabama's going to score at the end. They've got some big explosive receivers and a quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over. These are really 2 one-dimensional teams. Neither team runs the ball well enough to be a balanced offense. And then what you're asking is the quarterback or one-dimensional Alabama better versus Oklahoma's defense, or is Oklahoma's one-dimensional offense better against Alabama's defense? And I just think as long as Ty Simpson doesn't have turnovers, as he stays on course and doesn't turn the ball over, I think they can win by one touchdown. I think they score at the end. I think you've got two big play wide receivers. They can score at the end. Do see a close football game. But I keep saying this about Alabama. They still average under 100 yards, about 115 yards a game,
Right.
about 15 or so a game they're averaging. They got 56 last week, or in the game they played last week. They're not going to get very far in the playoffs unless they can run the football. And this isn't a game where you try to figure out, I think I'll try to run it. You better go try to win this game, however you can win it. But I wouldn't want to go against Oklahoma as a one-dimensional offense, but that's what they are. And they got to find a way, and they've got to find a way to score one more time than Oklahoma.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Alabama, to your point, is averaging 111 yards per game.
111.
You got to go back maybe to Nick Saban's first year. I have the stats, but I can tell you it's prior to 2016. It's the worst rushing output. 3.5 yards per carry is one of the worst rushing productivity for an Alabama Crimson Tide offense that we've seen over the last 20 years. So again, to your point, if the passing game isn't on, and this is still an Oklahoma defense that forces you to work down the field. They force you to be patient. They force you to throw underneath. They force you to utilize a lot of time at possession, and hopefully you make mistakes. We'll see, because, again, you give the advantage, obviously, to Alabama that's only lost one home game dating back to 2020, and that was a loss 4 years ago to Steve Sarkisian and Quinn Ewers, where they laid 6.5 and they lost the game outright. But Oklahoma is fighting for their lives, Coach.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Their defense is only giving up 181 passing yards per game. They've only allowed 7 passing touchdowns. They've held opposing quarterbacks to 58% completion percentage. When you look at the front seven, 82 rushing yards allowed, 2.4 yards per carry. So Alabama has problems running the football. It's not going to get better on Saturday. Now we look at it. Who's going to win third down potentially is going to be who pulls this ball game out and the turnover battle.
Well, that's right. Then I think the turnover battle is critical, because I think if you look at Alabama and you look at Ty Simpson, he's going to make those 3rd and 6s. He's going to make a lot of those 3rd and 5s, more so than John Mateer. So I think there are two things. One, Ty Simpson cannot afford turnovers, and if he's going to win a close game against a very good defense, John Mateer, the running game may come from him himself. That's where they could win the football game if they don't remember to cover him, because he's had some big games running the football, not looked at as a natural dual threat, but he is a pretty good dual threat quarterback. And so I think that's the key there. But anyway, I do think Alabama at home, the string they've got going, they got Auburn in the last game. It ain't over till it's over. I've said that. Every year I coach at Auburn, you can be 10-0 or 11-0 and have saved your job, but you haven't saved your career yet, because you saved your career, but you hadn't saved your job yet, because you hadn't beat Auburn or Alabama. That's a huge one to end the season with. And so it is a big game for Alabama, but they've got a great streak at home. It's important to them. The fact that they can't run, it doesn't make me feel strongly. I don't have a strong conviction, but I do believe they'll win by 7.
I'm going to roll the dice and
there you go.
Points. And I'll just say this. I said Oklahoma's rush defense is only giving up 82 yards per game. That's correct. On the road, Coach, it's 69 yards per game. They held 4 opponents, and we're counting Texas because that was a neutral field. They had the most rushing yards on that front seven. 136 by Texas. Temple had 26. South Carolina had 54. And Tennessee 2 weeks ago had 63. So they travel. They bring their lunch pail on the road. There's going to be a blue-collar game for Alabama. We'll see exactly how it plays out.
I want to say this about DeBoer. The West Coast, I don't think running the ball is as critical in the mindset of the West Coast type of players. In the Deep South, especially in the Western Division of the old Western Division, we had to run the football. You build your whole reputation. You get jobs. You make the fans happy because you can ram a big back up there and run the football. I don't know that DeBoer is totally committed to that philosophy yet. I just think on the West Coast, they can live with. They want to have it, but they can live without it. Whether it gets them this week, I don't think it will, but it'll keep it close. but it's going to get them down the road.
You know when he'll realize it, Coach?
What's that?
When he goes 9-3 again and misses the college football playoff, and those fans in Tuscaloosa say, "Unacceptable! This is not the norm. Bring back Nick."
That's
right?
that's exactly right. We talked earlier about the running backs that Nick had at Alabama. Not only were they great back, but big, physical, tough running backs, and that wears people down. Nothing makes a Southeastern Conference team, especially Alabama, happier than watching them pound people with that running game in the second half.
I'll tell you who was happy watching Georgia pound Miss State. That was me with Nate Frazier busting out. Bring the lunch pail. Run it down Miss State. I knew it was a bad matchup for Miss State. They allowed 236 to Arkansas on the ground. I said, Georgia, don't be stupid. Just bring the lunch pail, run it 50 times in this game, and you should win it going away. That's exactly what they did. They fell behind 7-0. Their defense made adjustments, forced turnovers. And let me tell you something, that offensive line was cranking up.
Yep.
Nate Frazier, who's been in Kirby's doghouse, broke out with a huge performance. They play like that on Saturday night against Texas. It's going to be a field day. There's no way Georgia loses.
Well, we're going to go to Texas-Georgia game now. I would say Georgia, they are on a roll right now, and I have the bigger the game, the more I go with Kirby Smart in Georgia, and the bigger game, the more I think Texas will not be at the top of their game. They don't play well in big games. They don't run the ball well in big games, and boy, you're talking Georgia football now, late in the season, at home, everything's on the line. And you see what they did last week. Now they're starting to run the football, and look out. We're not talking about the teams, the odds on people, but the money is awful good on Georgia. If you're going to pull somebody out that's got a little better odds to make some money, I'd be looking at Georgia pretty strong.
So now Texas has a very good rush defense,
right?
78 rushing yards per game, one of the best in the SEC allowed. They're holding opposing offenses to 2.4 yards per carry. But we go to the road games. Florida, they allowed $159. Baugh and that offensive line for the Gators ran all over them in the first half of that matchup. They got abused. Kentucky, I know that they strung back-to-back wins together,
right.
But by no means is anybody reaching out in Lexington and thinking that, Hal Mummy is coming back with am I wrong? Right? Right? Miss State did get held to 63, and Vandy, they held to 58. I get it, but at the end of the day, this is a different animal for Georgia. They roll multiple backs at you, not just Frazier. It's the freshman Bowens. Gunnar Stockton can run. And now you have an identity crisis, I believe, with the Longhorns. Are they a run-heavy team, or are they going to roll with Arch Manning that has shown a little consistency? Because, again, with no margin for error, Coach, Texas loses, they're out of the playoff.
Yeah, I think Texas, too. I think what happens is it is a mindset. Steve Sarkisian is not as committed to the run. If it's a tight ball game, he abandons the running game quite often and doesn't get a lot of yardage because he doesn't run it enough. He doesn't go back. He doesn't stick with it. The one thing you know about Georgia, if it's a tight ball game in the first half and the running yards are not picking up big gains, he's just going to keep with it. And eventually they'll get it done. So I think that's where you have a problem. The bigger the game, the reason I think Texas does not play as well because they aren't as committed to sticking with that running game. They'll stick the ball in the air more and more toward the second half.
We'll see. We'll see if we get fireworks. The SEC championship game, dead under. The last time they played in Austin, dead under. And Kirby went to the rushing attack in both of those games to pull it out. So we'll see. I still like Georgia early on. Coach and I will be on tomorrow, giving our picks potentially for the SEC and the other games.
Right.
Let's jump to the ACC
All
because
right.
those are big games as well. Let's start with the hottest team in the conference that nobody's talking about. It's Pat Narduzzi and the Pitt Panthers, Coach, coming out of a bye week, 7-2 overall. 4 weeks ago, they were basically 18-1 to win the ACC. They're now down to 7. Notre Dame, obviously, top 10 unit. They get the winning cover over Navy in dominating fashion. CJ Carr with 3 touchdowns. They win it 49-10 as a 26.5-point home favorite. They're now laying 11.5. I know the kid is a freshman, Mason Heinsteichel, whatever. We know it's the freshman. He's
Matt
stepping
Heinchel.
up, right? Heinchel. There
There
you
you
go,
go.
Heinchel.
He
Is
has been.
playing so well, coach, and this defense is playing so good in run support. I like Pitt plus the 11.5 early on.
I mean, I'm gonna take the 100 that Narducci gave them that they can stay within 100. No, I do too. I'll be honest with you. Now, I think Notre Dame is going to be able to pound and get that link. But I'm gonna tell you something. I've got Pitt with 11.5. I like Pitt because I think they'll keep this game close. And if Notre Dame's not careful, Pitt, this quarterback, he's no longer a rookie now. He's got 5 games in a row. 4 of them, he's thrown for over 300 yards in 4 of those games. He's the hottest quarterback, the number 1 quarterback, I believe, in the ACC right now, passing yardage. And Narducci, I will say this: he's a veteran. He knows how to coach, and there's a little bit of. I just think there's a little bit of poor mouthing because if we talk about the comment he made in the press conference that we don't care about this game, we can get beat by 100. As long as we win our other ones. Well, you win the other ones, you still may not get in. So you better win this one just to make sure.
Right.
But if he is intending for the Notre Dame players to see that and the coach to see that and the press to make comments about it so it would get to Notre Dame, it sure did. But that sounds like some old Lou Holtz poor mouthing going on there. But they are a very good football team, and they're the hottest team in the conference. And this is a big game for them again because they've also got a good finish up in the conference with some good opponents to finish up the conference. Who do they finish up with? Georgia Tech and Miami. Yeah, we're going to find out. They're going to find out how good they are before this is all over. The next 3 weeks, top 25 teams. If Pittsburgh can win 2 out of 3 and hang in this, and even if they lose close to Notre Dame, it's going to get interesting with this team. But Notre Dame better control that football. They're going to be able to run it, and they're going to have good quarterbacks going to make good decisions. But they better keep that ball out of the hands of that quarterback because he will even it up real quick.
Well, Heinchel, these are his numbers. You ready?
Yeah.
Boston College, he completes 30 of 41.
Mm-hmm.
For 323. He has that great performance against Florida State where he completes 21 of 29, 321, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
Right.
He then puts up a pedestrian 140 against Syracuse, but we know Syracuse didn't threaten. They win the game 30-13. He then puts up 423 against NC State. They bury them 53-34, and he puts up 304 and 3 touchdowns against Stanford, coach. I mean, he didn't have 2 turnovers, 2 interceptions, but I mean, the kid is lethal. This team looks so much different with him at the helm as opposed to Eli Holstein.
And what you see there is when the other team does score and they have to outscore the other team, that's when his numbers get real good because that's what he's capable of doing. And Notre Dame has the ability to put some numbers on the board, but I think Pitt can hang with them and then go back and forth with them and go foot and foot in the scoring department. Although I think Notre Dame will mostly use the running game, Pitt will have to have plays out of that quarterback mostly. But I'm telling you, it should be interesting in this football game. Notre Dame, is that Notre Dame?
No,
it's at Pitt. That's right. That Heinz Field at Pittsburgh. And so it won't be like having to go to Notre Dame play in South Bend. So I like those points right now. We'll finalize tomorrow, but I really think that Notre Dame, yes, they've got to win this game, but man, that doesn't mean you're going to win a game just because you got to win it. I mean, that's not the way it's played. Pittsburgh got to win this game too. It's a big one for them if they're looking at college football playoffs or momentum, all those things that are necessary. It's an important game for them too.
And I agree that both Carr and Heinsteichel are not freshmen anymore.
No.
But I will say this potentially is Carr's biggest game since that week 1 matchup of him making the first start in Miami.
Right.
Just because it's Miami, you're on the road, it's your first career start. Obviously, there's going to be butterflies. But now, this is the best team that you have potentially faced since you lost to Texas A&M. I mean, you go through the list. I know Navy was good, but Navy, NC State, some of the other teams that they face, Coach, Boston College is not going to threaten them offensively like potentially Pitt will in this game. And I think all the pressure now back on Carr, that could benefit Pitt where they're playing with house money.
Yeah,
Like, hey,
I was gonna
we
say
can
that.
roll the dice a little bit here.
Well, that in their game plan too, and their play calling. I think the coaches, it can be reflected by how the coaches call plays, going for it, being loose, quarterback being loose. I think they clearly know that they can play loose and play with house money, and that doesn't necessarily mean they'll be sloppy or they won't be locked in and focused. That just means a lot of times when you're relaxed and you're not tense or tight, the bigger a game gets, sometimes teams get tight. And so I think it's going to be a perfect situation for Pittsburgh, and it's going to be a close ball game. I think they're going to keep it close. And Notre Dame, they're going to have to keep that ball out of that quarterback's hands. If they're going to win this game, they've got to keep the ball out of his hands with a really good running attack.
We'll see. Total is around 55.5, so we'll see if both teams can get there. It could be cold weather in Pittsburgh on Saturday afternoon. We'll see exactly how that plays out. This Miami team, Coach, laying another big number. Now, this NC State team is hot and cold.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're going to get from them, but they still have the potential to be, I want to say, competitive. They were competitive with Notre Dame for a half. They obviously knocked off Virginia in their place in Raleigh. I mean, Syracuse didn't challenge Miami in any capacity. I actually think NC State, I don't know if they cover this line. I have to break down the numbers tonight. But I think they could be live, at least in the first day. I think they're going to be live. Miami, to me, just doesn't look now like they're all dialed in. Like, I just feel like after the 2 losses, it's like, the season's over.
Yeah, you know what? I think people in Miami are now beginning to worry a little bit because this is the second year in a row where they underachieve. Because they really do have a stronger overall team than last year. They put together an outstanding defensive talent, the rush defense, the defensive talent, the skill, the young receiver that's a big play threat, and the quarterback, what he has, the veteran quarterback that he is, in between coaching decisions and quarterback decisions. I'm just, and I think NC State is one of those we haven't talked about much at all, but I thought they knocked off Louisville and Virginia. Was that the one that, aren't they the team that just knocked off Louisville? Who did they lose to? Was it?
No,
Boston College. I'm sorry. But Louisville, NC State has played pretty dang good on certain occasions, and so they scare you. And they have an outstanding coach as well at NC State. I coached against him when he was at Northern Illinois. Dave Doran, and he does a really good job there. And so I think Miami has got to come out there and play a great game. I just have lost a lot of confidence in knowing what we're going to get out of Miami.
Right, and so you were half right. They knocked off Virginia and Georgia Tech.
And Georgia Tech, that's right. Yeah,
they beat Georgia Tech by 12. They were catching basically 5.5. They beat them 40, put up 48 points on Georgia Tech.
Yeah, Georgia Tech couldn't stop them. They couldn't stop them. And the quarterback looked phenomenal that game. And that was Virginia's first loss of the season. It didn't count as a conference loss, but they knocked off Virginia that went on to have 8 straight wins and only lost their last game because of the quarterback situation, I believe. And so, yeah, it'll be an interesting game. Miami has already really got everybody doubting down there. And I don't know when, they hired Cristobal to win championships, just like they hired Brian Kelly to win championships. And right now, they're right now wondering, hey, we're expecting more than this. And it's an important game for them. This is an important finish for Miami because they are right now, if you looked at the college football playoff, the brackets, they are kind of a team that's kind of circled because of who they're playing. Don't know that it's the right thing or the right decision, but it's going to take a lot of luck for them to make that playoff, and they got to win every game, and they got to look good because they've got to play well because right now they're going to have people vote on them ahead of other people that have better records.
Yeah, style points matter, number one. And again, just seeing how they played around with Syracuse, they didn't get the cover. They won by 28. They were 28.5-point favorites. It's like they just take teams for granted sometimes. And I think that's something that does fall on the head coach. They come out flat. They're not focused. You're supposed to bounce back from adversity. We'll see if they can do that, how they respond against a team that's going to challenge them. C.J. Bailey put up 340 yards through the air against Georgia Tech. He has 19 touchdowns on the year. This is a better offense considerably than what they faced against Syracuse last week, and an offense that's inept on their third quarterback. So we'll see exactly how it plays out, and we'll give our pick for that game tomorrow night when we're on. Virginia and Duke, does it shock you that Virginia is only 4.5-point dogs in this game? Yeah, and we don't know exactly yet about Morris, but if he can't go, Coach, they're going to be 7-point dogs if he can't go.
Well, now I've tried to read everything I could on it and talk to people, and he had a good practice. He's on the field practicing, and all the indications is that he'll be ready. And I think right now, as it stands right now, he'll be ready. Now, I won't pick them if he doesn't play or can't play, but I think they'll come back and play well if he plays. I think the team will respond to if that quarterback is playing. I think they saw the same thing I saw in the last game, and they're going to have a hard time getting back up if he's not taking snaps in that game when it opens up. But if he does, and really, Duke is a funny team too. They've lost 4 games, and they may be. Their quarterback is as good as anybody's. Their defense plays aggressively, but they go out there and lose ball games that I would never thought they would lose. In UConn now, they're a pretty good football team for the level they are. They have an outstanding quarterback. We don't follow UConn all that much, but they're a pretty good dang football team. But the Duke has been so inconsistent. If Chandler Morris is healthy and playing, I think he can. I think they've got. I think it's a 6-game or 6.5-point spot. I like Virginia to overcome they're underdogs though, but I like them to overcome it if he's playing.
Yeah, so they lose 37-34 to UConn. They were a 9.5-point road dog.
Yeah,
and they had one of the better. Obviously, because it was a non-conference game, they have one of the best odds to win an ACC championship.
Right.
If they're let's say there's 9, they're 9-4 is going to get them potentially into the college football playoff.
If they win their conference, they're favorite, the odds are favorite to win the conference.
Right. So if they win out, they're going to be 9-4, and you want to hear? I guarantee you, Coach. I'm telling you this right now. You're going to hear the Texases, the Oklahomas, when they get slotted in the college football playoff. You're going to hear the argument. Whoever's that 3-loss SEC team, they are going to be up in arms if Duke wins the conference championship.
Well, you're already hearing gripes. You're already hearing the gripes from these coaches and these people that are behind the scenes at these other schools. At the ACC, I can say there's not a pretty team right now in the ACC. There's nobody say, boy, this team's got something special. I rode Georgia Tech about as far as I could. I saw some great things out of Duke early. But and in Miami, we all thought that was going to be the year that Miami got to the final 12 playoff, and everybody's kind of fallen on their face. And we've still got each team playing somebody else that can knock them out or put them in. So it's still got 3 big weeks and 2 big games in conference for a lot of teams.
Yeah, we'll see exactly who Coach and I break down and pick in that matchup. Duke is the front runner along with Georgia Tech. Yeah. Let's not forget, Georgia Tech does have the head-to-head against them. We'll see if it's 2 teams in the ACC, 3 teams, 1 team, depending upon who wins the conference. That puts those other teams potentially on life support. I talked about Kirk Cignetti at the start of the show, Coach. This Wisconsin team has stones because they step up and they beat Jed Fish and Wisconsin 13-10. How they did that, it's got to be like a David Copperfield show with smoke and mirrors. They did that because this offense can't score, I don't think, on a high school team. They're catching now 29.5 against Indiana.
Well, hey, their leading passer was their punter. And now that was their leading passer last week was their punter. They've got both of the other quarterbacks, I think, ready to play, but there's no answer with them. So there's no answer at quarterback. So that was my whole deal. The problem is Indiana scored 24, 21, and 20 3 times they've been held in the 20s, and that affects the line. Now, I don't care what you do. I don't think Wisconsin can score in the 20s, to be honest with you. So I think, but it's clear that if they're not sharp on offense, they can be held to the 20s. So that has nothing to do with the number, and I think that number makes you think twice. But I'm going to have a hard time going against Indiana this one because of the way they played last week and the way they will probably play this week if Wisconsin has a hard time getting a first down.
I did want to bring up, and I know we were a day later because typically we go earlier in the week.
Right.
We didn't talk about the Texas Tech win over BYU. That
Wow.
dominant front seven led by David Kelly stepped up yet again, Coach. This team is dominant. They're laying 23.5 over UCF. UCF is coming off the loss to Houston last week, 30-27. I will just say, I don't know if they're threatened in this game. This game is in Lubbock. They've dominated teams in Lubbock. I do like UCF plus the points to keep it close. But one, I don't think Texas Tech got enough respect in the playoff. Secondly, based off the job that Joey McGuire's done, he's not mentioned for some of these other, big gigs. What do you see Joey McGuire? If he takes his team to a Big 12, championship or berth, is he the product of NIL? Or, he's won back-to-back bowl games. He knocked off Ole Miss and he knocked off Arkansas, 2 SEC teams in back-to-back years.
Well, that's like saying, is Lane Kiffin a product of the NIL? Yes, he's a product of the NIL to some extent because he's smart enough to use it. For Nick Saban, the process meant one thing. For McGuire, the process means something else. It means being able to evaluate veteran talent, being able to hang on to the people that you got on your roster already to make sure they're paid well enough. I think it's got the NFL philosophy of how to manage that monies that you're paying out there. And so McGuire's done a heck of a job. But the question, if they're putting that much money in NIL and into their program and into their facilities, he's probably got a nice little compensation package there. And if you love it while you're there, they'll treat you real good. That's not a bad place to go. If this is an indication of where they are, and it's kind of like my dad used to say, he would say, "Why don't you wish you were in the SEC?" And Dad would say, "Are you kidding me? I'm at Florida State. We can get to the championship every year just trying to play in the ACC. It's not as tough." And Old Tech, if he's sitting at Texas Tech and he's winning, shoot, he's got a chance to get to the daggum playoffs every year if he can keep that thing going.
Yeah, he knocked off Ole Miss and Cal, and then they lost to Arkansas last year because they went with Will Hammond and they got smacked around. But I was on Arkansas. I forgot about that. That was a big game for Taylon Green and the Razorbacks. But, yeah, he's done a great job. And, again, you don't think Big 12 is physical. They are playing solid defense. So I think when we look at the big picture for Texas Tech, they get into the playoff, they're going to make some noise because of how physical they are, right?
Well, yeah, but if you can play defense like they play defense and the pressure they put on quarterbacks and the way they stuff the run, at least they show they know what they're doing. If you're going to build a championship team, let's get that defensive front taken care of because that's where the money is, and that's where you've got to win football games on the defensive front. And they've done a great job with that, as well as the explosiveness they are on offense.
Exactly. They're 23.5-point favorites. Could be potentially a little letdown spot for Texas Tech. They might win, but I would take the 23.5 early on with UCF. The other game that I just wanted to touch on, Iowa and Oregon, because Iowa does play USC. This week, they're catching 6.5. You were impressed with Oregon's effort in Kinnick on Saturday afternoon. You called it right with Iowa catching the points. They found a way to win, and I think that's all that matters.
For the same reason that I was impressed with Indiana against Penn State, I was impressed with Oregon coming back down the field, not panicking, coming back down the field to win the game. I thought it was impressive. It showed some poise. It showed that they still understood the importance of the game. And everything at Iowa happened like it kind of all kind of fits in. Why does he continue to have no quarterbacks that can throw? Why does he continue to be one-dimensional? And then you go back and study it. It said because he's at Kinnick. He's got to run the football late in the season because you can't throw it in wind and rain and snow. And so, yes, I thought it was not for Oregon to get out there with a win, any win you can get, and to come from behind like that. It shows a lot of character, and it still shows those guys are focused on the future. So I haven't really given up on Oregon, but I also feel like he's got a pretty daggone good football team at Iowa.
We'll see exactly what they do and how they step up. We'll see. Iowa, USC, it's an interesting game. Coach and I will break that game down tomorrow. It'll be in the picks segment. We'll be back tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. We touched on all the big games this week. Tomorrow is the picks. Coach, a lot happening. Who knows what tomorrow brings? But I can tell you what, this week 12 will definitely separate. Contenders from the pretenders.
Yeah, we'll know a little bit better about who's going to actually play for that conference championship.
For Coach Bowden, I'm Joe Lisi. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.